Hi, and welcome back to How to Be a Mystic. I'm going to continue on this journey, just contemplating the fact that, if I'm here on this earth breathing, then I am on a spiritual path. And being a mystic is just being aware of that and noticing the divine in everything, the divine love that everything is at its core, even when we don't see it that way on the surface. And I'm well aware that on the surface, it really doesn't look that way. And we do have to remind ourselves constantly. I do have to remind myself constantly that the divine is there, the love is there, the compassion and kindness is there. I mean, I see it. I remind myself to appreciate it, really. It is there. It's there, plain to see. But I have to remind myself to notice it and appreciate it. And that's sort of the theme of what I wanted to talk about today. So let's begin with the blessing as normal. In the name of the Mother below and the Father above, our sisters to the left and brothers to the right, our ancestors and forebears, and all that came before, and all that is to come. Right here, right now. I am the embodiment of all that is, all that ever was, and all that ever may be. Right here, right now, I am creating from this point. And if I keep thinking about the world in terms of how it was up to this moment, even how it is in this moment, I can never create something new. I have to let go of every idea that I have about how the world works, who I am, my history. I take the lessons from history with gratitude for the suffering that that was lived, that I lived, that people are living in every now moment. But rather than say, well, we need to fix this, or we need to fix that, and that needs to be different, and that needs to change, we'll never get there, because we're basing it all on what already has been, or what we think has been. And all of that, all of the reality that we perceive is a perception, is a maya. It's an illusion. But even an illusion can be painful because it feels so real. I mean, if you think of it in terms of, watching a horror movie, I mean, how real does that feel in the moment? And in the nightmares and the moments when you're alone in the dark, when you recreate it, I mean, that's just a fraction of how real this illusion that we call our lives is. But truly, in truth, it's just a screen out there that my senses are taking in and projecting out and reprocessing, recycling over and over, just slightly different changes. Maybe different characters, maybe different locations, different languages, different scripts, but basically recycling the same data. And so how do we break out of that matrix? Well, through stillness and really connecting with our own hearts for the truth of the moment. There's many truths, but for the truth of the moment. So when I still my body and breathe, and empty my mind as much as I can, just drop down into my heart. Just drop my intention, my attention to my chest. And breathe. And maybe just bring my attention to where I'm sitting, just the sensation on my body, the weight in the chair, feet on the ground, air on my skin, birdsong outside. Whatever smells I can sense. Taste of toothpaste in my mouth. I open my eyes. The images I see before me. I keep my eyes slightly blurred. Soft. Soft gaze. And I breathe softly. In and out through my heart. And I put a little smile on my face. That relaxes all the muscles and releases endorphins and allows me to relax a little bit more with each breath. And even if I feel little islands of tension, I send them a smile. It's okay. It's okay to feel tension. It's okay to be a little bit anxious. It's okay to be a big bit anxious sometimes. It's just our fears, our human fears. It has become our natural way of being, our default way of being, let's say, rather than natural, because it isn't natural. And it's okay. We can give it a little bit of tenderness, swaddle it like a baby. Swaddle it in care and love, and just allow it to be. I don't know if you can hear, but my local church bells are really ringing. Huge celebration. I think it's just a call for mass, but it's like a real celebration of life. I hope you can hear it. It's a bit distracting for me, but anyway. When we're in that nice, relaxed place, then tune into our hearts. And know this moment, right here, right now, that you are safe, that there's nothing to fear, that you can swaddle your fears and smile at them and send them love and just allow them to be. I mean, it's part of the joy of our humanity. You know, that we create our own suffering through our thoughts, through our perceptions, through our opinions, through taking ourselves too seriously. And when we realize that, when we realize that it's my own stories that I'm telling myself that are creating this rush of hormones running through my body that are making me feel anxious and stressed and sick. That's all my own thinking is creating that. I can laugh. I can laugh at the fact that I'm doing this to myself. And I can laugh even more when I realize that's my humanity, and have compassion for myself and forgive myself. There's nothing to forgive. It's just my nature. Okay, it's got corrupted a little bit, you know. I've gotten into a default, well, we have gotten into a default position of immediately turning, looking for something to be afraid of. But I don't know. There's something funny and lovely about that as well. It's like an innocence, you know. It's a proof of our innocence, believe it or not. I don't know how I'm coming to that conclusion, but that's how it feels to me. That I'm like a child who is afraid of the dark. And I can see the funniness of that, the humor in that, and the innocence in that. So while the fear is difficult, the understanding that the fear isn't real, that it's just I need to turn the light on and then the darkness dissipates. There's something very precious about it. There's a tenderness and a compassion that I feel for myself in those situations. And I think, you know, it's important to realize that I'm not on this path to not feel those things. It's not about, oh, I'll never suffer anymore. If I reach a certain level of awakening or enlightenment or a realization, self-realization, that I won't have any more suffering. Well, maybe that is true, but I certainly don't feel that, you know, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay to continue suffering sometimes. It's not that it's pleasant, believe me. I know that. It's very uncomfortable when we have those fears and stresses come up and our buttons get pressed. And it seems irrational because the situation that's happening is, you know, my stress is completely out of proportion with the situation. Nonetheless, that's how I feel. If that's how I feel, then that's okay. I can rationalize it all I like, but that's just going to go around and round in my head and actually won't fix anything, won't change anything. The way I see it now is when I get triggered, when these anxieties come up, it's an opportunity for me to see the illusion lift another veil. That's it. That's all it is. It's just peeling another layer off the onion. But it's another layer. And that's part of the adventure. And so while it is incredibly uncomfortable, it's also an opportunity. And I find now that the discomfort is in my body while my mind is still able to stay open. And my heart is able to stay open for the most part. I might shut down briefly, but if I can keep my heart and my mind open, then the discomfort is purely chemical within my body. And that just needs time to process it out. And of course, I have to be careful not to keep recreating that overflow of chemicals, not rethinking myself back into that state of stress. I have to be able to let it go. But it's easier to do that with an open heart and an open mind. A soft heart, as Richard Rudd calls it. I soften my heart and open my mind. When I can do that, I can breathe. And I can breathe through and release that flush of chemicals that's going through my body. And this is why life is the spiritual path. Because we're given these challenges like an obstacle course. We give them to ourselves. It's not like there's somebody up there handing them out and some get more than others. I think in some lifetimes we get more than others. But we never get anything that we can't actually handle. However, I have found through experience that when I get an inkling of something small, a small push of the button, a small poke, I try and deal with it then, rather than wait and wait and wait, avoiding it or ignoring it until it comes and slaps me in the stomach. Deal with things. Be honest. Speak your truth. Even when it's hard. Even when you don't have the words. Try. You know, I have to try to speak from my heart without slinging mud, because I'm only slinging mud at myself in the mirror. I have to remember that, not to blame, because it's my projection. It's my trigger and my projection and my mirror. So I try to speak from that place of taking responsibility for my own emotions. But at the same time, maybe holding a boundary. It's not really a boundary. It's just a truth of, I'm comfortable with this. I'm not comfortable with that. This feels right. That one, not so much. Otherwise, we're manipulating. Otherwise, it's a manipulation, trying to avoid conflict. I don't like conflict. I'm very uncomfortable with conflict. And the temptation is always to just say nothing and hope it'll just blow over. But I've realized that that's manipulation. And if there's anything in life that that really pushes my buttons, it's when I feel like I'm being manipulated. Why? Because that's a mirror of my manipulation. There might be an overt manipulation being projected back to me, but it's my trying to avoid conflict. That is also the manipulation that's being mirrored back to me. None of us likes to think of ourselves as manipulators, but we are. We can either be overt manipulators or covert manipulators. And the covert ones are the ones who think they're not manipulating. I know, because that was me. It can and still can be, but I try and pick myself up on it sooner rather than later. But saying what you think somebody wants to hear, or doing what you think somebody wants you to do rather than what you want to do, or what feels right to you. I'm not saying you don't ever compromise. I'm not saying you don't ever decide, to be altruistic or kind and do something that doesn't quite suit you. But the thing is that you make a choice to do, to help, to put yourself out. That's different. If you make that choice and do it willingly and do it with love, that's different to not saying what you want and just doing what another wants to keep the peace, or to make them like you, or to project some image of yourself as a really kind, giving person. If you are a kind, compassionate person, you don't have to prove it. You don't have to do or take any actions to prove it. You just are. And it just comes naturally. Well, I think we all are kind, compassionate people at heart. We just have fears that we'll be taken advantage of or that we'll get hurt. And it's important to remind ourselves that we cannot be hurt. Richard Rudd says, a healed heart can never be hurt. I sort of change that because it's like a broken heart, one that has been shattered and left wide open, can never be broken again. So if you have a broken heart, or have had, And then now you've built up walls around it, like we do. Try to let down those walls. Get help to do that. There's heart wall healing, heart wall healing that you can get done. My friend Deborah Jane Sutton is really good at that, and she has done it for me many times. And it really, really helps, and it really, really works. I'll put a link to her website below. Heart wall healing is the first step we need to take, really. If you can't do it yourself, get help. But let the walls down. Leave your heart wide open. A shattered heart can't be reshattered. So why build it up again? Just leave it open. Let the love flow through, in and out. Let it come in. Receive all the love that is sent your way. And there is oceans of it. Just let those waves flow through. Let the tide come in and go out through an open heart. I'm going to end today with the blessing again. Just feels right somehow. I hope you all have a great week and stay open. In the name of the Mother below and the Father above, our sisters to the left and brothers to the right, our ancestors and forebears, right here, right now, all that is, all that ever was and all that ever may be. Right here, right now. I am that. I am.